Okay, good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 16th episode of House of Light, our first run of this through YouTube, playing as the Archaeologist. And again, I must apologize to everybody who was looking forward to the Salon last episode. But just a clarification in terms of the mechanics, because I don't know if I was clear enough for people. If you start the Salon at the beginning of the day, what happens is you'll run through it, and basically you get your lessons, and you sort of have a fighting chance by the end of the day to use the elements of the soul that that you didn't use as part of the Salon. And I think probably to compensate for the fact that if you use them overnight, you're going to be down some elements of the soul the following day. The later in the day that you host the Salon, you actually get an extra sort of time. So there's a number of events that happen over the course of a Salon. It's dependent on the number of people who are invited, and then it's also dependent on the time of day. So I believe if we were to host one now, we would get one extra event. However, I believe but the question is, if we do something later, do we wind up getting one extra, right? So is there any benefit to hosting it so do I want to host it in the afternoon? Do I want to host it later? Or is there any difference? And so because I had the opportunity to sort of save the game and I can reload if it doesn't turn out here, I did want to take the opportunity to just do something later on in the game. So there is actually a mechanical difference in terms of what's going on, as well as the just the practical having the time to run everything through for myself here. So again, the guests of the Salon: Serena Blackwood, one-time librarian of Hush House, one-time librarian of the Invisible Serapeum in Alexandria, and currently what exactly? Serena is close-mouthed, but I know that she has worked with the St. Ronwin Trust. Mademoiselle Olympie Bichet, essayist, illustrator, critic, editor of the Carisham Review. Lieutenant Arthur Thomas Moore, retired, hero, pilgrim, traitor. He will always be a soldier, but never again can he be only a soldier. Mr. Fraser Strathcoyne, philanthropist, collector, former librarian, a complicated man, but not a cruel one. And D.I. Douglas Moore, detective illuminate of the Suppression Bureau, a stoic but weary fellow. His dearest wish is to move to Chingford and grow roses, but the buggers won't let him retire. We are now at dusk, night from day, silver from gold, the vesper hour, when priests would honor the rising of the evening star, Meniscate. Supper. All right, my guests take their places for supper. Keep an eye on the Salon as it progresses. You will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the Salon will last. So we do not have a secretary persistent. In Hush House, an empty place was often traditionally left at the table for Rowena, protectress of Hush House, and once a secretary persistent of the Curia of the Isle. Look at that. Just going to move this over so I can use my elements of the soul. A formal meal. Lunch and supper last longer than less formal salons, allowing for an extra interaction between your guests, plus one time remaining. So, I could have started it earlier, and we would have gotten the same benefit. Still, it is kind of fun to see supper. So we will adjust our play accordingly, but I'm not going to reload the save or anything like that. Mansa's Tales. Ask about dreams. Add a fet card. So we're already short. Conversation ebbs and flows. Sorry, I wanted to take a second here. So you had Fusine, Ramsund, Sabazine, Ramsund, and Greek. Okay. Wistful asides, instinct and emotion, add a tryst card. So I also forgot that you don't actually have an interaction if you don't add the card. So it's going to be a little dull if I don't have any cards added, but we know that we've been able to satisfy at least one of the one of the items. So you get to learn a little bit more about the characters as you go through a salon. So here we go. Olympi is probing Douglas about the suppression of Vero's work Opening the Sky, about how odd it is that the government would commission the work for the new king's coronation and then suppress it. Douglas puffs uncomfortably on his pipe and says things like police business and don't know much about music until Olympi mentions the word gleam, at which point he abruptly excuses himself and goes out to take the air. We gain an oronoscopy lesson. Conversation ebbs and flows. Serious discussions invite a challenge. Add a metal card. So at least we're up 2. Night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. So I'll just take a minute here to save the storm for tomorrow. We'll likely use that with Mrs. Kill. Now the night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Douglas warns Olympi darkly of the dangers of knitting before sleep and the paths it can open in the wood. Yes, I knit. Gentlemen can knit. All right, another instinct and emotion. I will say, this is actually a pretty good, given the limited pool that I'm drawing from, this is a pretty good run. Serena and Arthur discuss the red flower of the Watchman's tree in hushed voices. Serena recalls ways that the Serapeum has used the Ithist's arts to preserve knowledge, even in a book that is burnt. And raise a complex question. Add a whist card, so we don't have a whist there. I believe that is it for the Salon then. Now, I believe if you get all of the items, you get a special memory, but... Oh. One more tryst. It's a good thing that we restored the one that we had. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. Olympi and Fraser discuss Azamel and Ashertine. Olympi confesses in a rush that she can never remember which is which. After an agonizing moment, Fraser shakes his head and admits, "No more can I." They grin at each other. I know we have an example of one, but not the other. We'll save it for later. My guests leave happy. You've gained an additional potent memory. All right, well, looks like we did okay then. So we also have fog. So this will mean that we potentially can open up some of the moon or knock rooms as well. So I don't think we have access to Reverend Timothy yet, which is a shame. Actually, yeah, so I seem to recall we ran into this last time, and I was thinking how nice it would be to try and bring Reverend Timothy in. So the question is, do I want to... Yeah, I don't think it's worth it. It did also just occur to me that it probably would have been less expensive for me to... Oh wait, no, it's still a shilling for Mrs. Kill as well. So Orchard Keepers offer Nectar and Heart, so either one, it's the same story. But I think today we are going to try and open the Darkened Church, although I should just double check what it's going to take me with the knock. So 8... the Rattling Bridge, it's just about the ink, so good there. Although that will actually get me access to more... I actually think this would be a good one for me to do because it will get me access to more books. Rattling bridge. Each time the wind makes its rounds, the whole bridge shakes. On its threshold, there's a serpentine knot marked in browned blood. The mark is fading, but it still trembles with the power of the spirit that waits in it, a great servant of the old house. Perhaps the last of the fine takers themselves. I must pacify it with a suitable offering before I can pass. Okay. So again, if I want to make a lot of progress, I'm going to need to restore these today, but I don't think Lively Salon. You've held a lively Salon. This marker is to remind you that you can't hold another Salon until next season. So we've got a satisfaction for our trouble. A curious hunch, that's a persistent memory. We've got inks of revelation, pyroglyphics, weaving and not working, and oronoscopy. So I'm just going to double check here. So I believe oronoscopy is a new one for us, as is weaving and not working, in fact. Pyroglyphics looks like we've actually got all brand new ones. So I don't need to worry about using any of these to level things up. So acquire inks of revelation, use this lesson to acquire a new skill. And I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So we're actually ready to go in terms of leveling up a orchard keeper, and I will in fact hire the orchard keeper this time rather than Mrs. Kill. It's nice to have a chat with her. It's nice to kind of have her involved, but it's better for me to spend the money and level up the main hireling. And again, I'm just trying to think. So it does look like 8 knock is the best that I can do here. So if I take the fog and so the fog gives me 3, the shaft gives me 5. So if I can find another 3, I'm good. But this is where the trouble comes in, because the element of the soul and the memory is really all that I've got going for me. I don't believe I have a knock. I don't have a knock tool. I could maybe have some knock food if I look for it. But the best I can really just do here is take a look in the kitchen. Most of the stuff I sort of made for the purposes of that one salon. So, yeah, I mean, unless I can find somebody to give the amethyst ampule to, I can't really see myself getting to the... Actually, you know what? The one thing that might change is the fact that I have the Gervanite. I could possibly give that to Denzel, and that would bring things up. But I feel like that is overdoing it. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to incorporate these skills into my repertoire. I don't know if there's any advantage to me trying to do things with my elements of the soul, like restore things or anything like that. But I figure maybe we can take the shaft to earn a bit of that money back. We can use the health to... actually, I should probably draw up some more water. And I figure anything that I have left over I can just use to feed the chickens. Because we are going to be... Well, we have plenty of vegetables, but we are going to be getting to a point where we can't do any more gardening until spring. All right, pour it out. In Cornwall, it is quite possible to take a stride from the richest vegetation into the abomination of desolation. It has been said in mockery that Cornwall does not grow enough wood, grow wood enough to make coffins for the people. Sabine Baring Gould. Okay, now tomorrow I'm going to try to read the Rose of Hypatia. But yeah, today it's going to be focused entirely on the Orchard Keeper, so everything goes easier with a song. There's not much work on offer in Brandkrug, but I can find 6 pence worth of odd jobs, or add a coin to find visitors seeking employment. Okay, so next up, we did open up this stairway, but we didn't actually read the description of it. So we've got the back stairs, the secret artery of the house. All those abbots and barons and all their crowds of retainers needed their chamber pots emptying and their boots cleaning. These are the stairs that the boots and the chamber pots went up and down. They were notoriously cramped and treacherous, and it was a rare year that some poor scullion didn't crack an ankle. It was the Suppression Bureau, at very long last, who remodeled the stairs and put in electric lights, and people say the Suppression Bureau never did Hush House any good. So we've also got Lepidoptery display, Heart-centric, a collection of Lepidopteran insects with unusual characteristics, and the Grail-centric one. Alright. It would be nice to figure out something to do with the fog before the end of the day. I think one possibility would be if I take the Shrine to St. Januarius, so if I take the Curious Hunch and the fog here, and then the Occult Scrap. Okay, so we know all the knock stuff there. I guess we kind of already did this with the Numa, didn't we? So I can't imagine I'm going to be getting any new information. So I suppose the natural question is, do I want to try and make... So we may be able to make the Gervanite out of this. If I ditch the Curious Hunch. Yes. So you know what? I actually see... I see an interesting possibility here. So if I take this Amethyst Ampule, so then we take the Shapt, and we take the Fog. Right, that's looking for Glassfinger Toxin, so that's not what I want. Right, so why did I think I was going to be able to get away with that? I would need the memory. I'm not ready to throw 2 Amethyst Ampules into that, so... I could do the T. The problem here is the Glassfinger Toxin is a little more attractive for these. Okay, so my next best really is to just see if there's some heroic way of getting some kind of moon or knock text read out of this. So Prophecies of Glory is Lantern, Lantern, Grail, Rose, Grail, Forge, Grail, Edge. In 10 is a little too high, I think. There may be some possibilities with Moon, because we do have higher level Moon. Admittedly just... Oh, nope. Edicts Martial. Aha. Alright, so I'm leaving this a little late in the day. Oof. Tough crowd. So if I had that Catwink, I could do it. Unfortunately, I did just spend it. Okay, well, we'll see. I'm probably just going to let it expire, or turn it into an Amethyst Ampule or something. We'll also chat with the Orchard Keeper for a bit before moving on into the house, and that's just because I want to, if I can, I would like to just generate a replacement memory to take overnight. So, the Inks of Revelation, the inks in which the histories are revealed. So on to, let's keep on the lantern front. Pyroglyphics. I've gained more understanding of pyroglyphics. Oh, I should have been paying attention there. We did actually have that. Okay, so there is an argument here. So what I should look at is our options would be to level up Meniscate Reflections, Transformations, and Liberations, Inks of Revelation, Watchman's Paradoxes. So one thing that I can do, you'll recall that in the previous episode we were looking at potential candidates to move up. So if I level up Inks of Revelation, that's going to go into Ithistry. So, I mean, that will eventually become level 5, but it's not something that I really need right now. Watchman's Paradoxes, that's a Nyctodromy and an Illumination one. Now, Illumination is a tough one. I think I can actually afford to put that in, but again, that's going to be one that gets added after Ericapean and Crack Track. So minimum I want that at 3. But there is a small argument for Watchman's Paradoxes here. Okay. So I'm warming to that as a possibility. Pyroglyphics, I think that's actually going to be a fairly higher level one, if I remember my plans correctly. So perhaps there is an argument for me to try and move that one higher. Although, yeah, I already have a high level forge item and the lantern isn't sort of the main driver on that one. Okay, so transformations and liberations, I believe I was going to make a fairly high level one at some point. Spices and savors, I think I already said that I would consider putting that into the Bosk slot, so it's hard for me to see that as a better one. It's hard to see that as a better choice than Meniscate Reflections and Transformations and Liberations, although again, for Meniscate Reflections, that's a Preservation and Illumination. Yeah, hard to say between Meniscate Reflections and Transformations and Liberations, and maybe it'll just be the memories that decide that for me. But one way or another, I think it would be a good call to level up one of these two. I think they're the only... Well, sorry, Watchman's Paradoxes also count, so... well, I don't have any... Actually, here's another way for me to think about this. Transformations and Liberations doesn't get me any extra Moth, and it doesn't get me any extra Forge, so this doesn't enable any new books. Meniscate Reflections doesn't enable any extra Edge or Forge books, because I've already got a higher level Edicts Martial, and I've already got Bells and Braziaries. Leveling up Watchman's Paradoxes... brings me higher Lantern, and I believe actually also brings me... Well, it doesn't bring me more Sky because of Bells and Braziaries, but still, Watchman's Paradoxes technically... Well, by that token, Inks of Revelation is also a legitimate choice. But I think I'll probably do Watchman's Paradoxes, all things being equal. Okay. But before I do that, let's add weaving and knotworking. Use this lesson to acquire a new skill. My assistant and I are both a little merrier. So we'll add the storm right away. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. And then the last thing that we need to do here is add the kitchen bowls so that we can open up the Darkened Church. And here we are, lots of books. The Vestibulum Transitus. The Vestibulum Transitus was the Rye name the Curia gave this structure. Before, it was Valentine's Bridge, the sheltered crossing beyond which Baron Valentine's solitude was assured. So I definitely want to go through... I definitely want to catalog all of this stuff, but I've got other priorities right now. And of course, there is the danger of a curse, so I want to catalog these reasonably quickly, but I also don't need to move heaven and earth for all of this. Okay, another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms. Weaving and not working. Hee. Valentine DeWolf. Oronoscopy. So here we're just sort of replacing the money we spent. One last step here, add the kitchen bowls with the Orchard Keeper's assistance. I can lend my assistant something to help increasing their abilities. So opening up the Gloomy Stair shouldn't be too difficult for me as well, but it doesn't get me as much as, say, the Vestibulum Transitus. Moon and Winter or Rose and Sky. Both of these are going to be kind of hard for me. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Okay, so this one I'm going to use to restore an element of the soul. It could be any which one. There's a... So I think if I try and garden at this point, I just lose it for the next day. But there's nothing stopping me from bringing in a core either, so... But yeah, I'll restore it, but I'll probably restore it so that I can talk to one of the chickens. A quick nap in a warm bed with something comforting to drink, while the winds chase the clouds and the clouds chase the sun. Consider the star. Hath each star its 7 names. Observe that these names are never shared. Thomas DeWolf. Okay. And the pyroglyphics, again, depends on... it depends a bit on how the day shapes up. If we are going to level up Watchman's Paradoxes, we're going to want a Lantern or a Sky memory. I technically have Lantern through the Curious Hunch, but that would be a shame to use such a powerful memory just to level up the first level. Okay, so let's have a chat with the Orchard Keeper. I could encourage my assistant, work with them for a little while, exalt them. Or I could just listen to whatever they might have to... I could just listen to whatever they might have to say. Now, I am eager to invite Corso back so that we can get the Hyksos. And it did occur to me that one option I have with the Rose of Hypatia would be to read the book and then just get the moth memory either through conversation or something else. I mean, again, we may wind up getting that through conversation with the Orchard Keeper anyway. But yeah, essentially, I would like to... I'd like to try and get something that will give me the insurance policy for the Rose of Hypatia. Okay, another satisfaction. I've learned something or perhaps just remembered it. So this does sort of put a cramp on my plans for the chickens. But I do like the idea of having something to carry overnight. Oh, I've got a place for the Deep Mandaic book, it seems. I've learned something or perhaps just remembered it. So in the bed that I have Nectar, Edge, and Heart as an option. So right now it's just the Satisfaction that I can keep, which is what we got from the Salon anyway. Now if I'm really desperate, I could use the Pyroglyphics to level up Transformations and Liberations. That's going to be something that happens anyway. I deserved a little quiet time. So again, depends on where we're at in the day. I don't actually have that much more time to talk with the various characters, so I am going to want to make some decisions relatively soon. Okay, well, that gives me my Watchman's Paradoxes, actually, so let's work on that. But where do I get the lantern in the sky from? I didn't think this through. So yeah, as much as I may want to level up Watchman's Paradoxes, the only two elements of the soul that will help me do that would be Whist. So it's transformations and liberations, which would require a moth, spices and savors, which would require another memory, pyroglyphics. Yeah, same story there. I did neglect Disciplines of the Hammer. Metascape Reflections also works because I have access to Forge. So yeah, Transformations and Liberations is the one that I want. So I guess the question is, do I want to try... I can read a book with Impulse to prep for tomorrow. Yeah, you know what? Let's level up Transformations and Liberations tonight. So we use the Shaft for that, and we'll use the Occult Scrap. So there's always more to learn. Improve the skill to level 2. This will increase its aspects, which will help it with crafting and make it suitable for higher branches in the Tree of Wisdoms. Talk-wise, I think it's time to feed the chickens. Resentful Terrence, cluck, cluck. And then we will get the Orchard Keeper to open up the Darkened Church. So this has long been a holy place, but shadows are the only worshippers here now. The windows have been painted black, the pews overturned, the organ hung with black ribbons. I think we might be able to feed Tuppence as well, but I would need to open up a sack of vegetables to do that, so. Skill is now level 2, its power aspects have also increased. I could feed the marrow, but the marrow is something that I can actually use in a salon, so I'm going to settle for opening the vegetables. And again, I do have an outside option of using the fog to generate an amethyst ampule, but that doesn't feel like a very good use of the time. Better now. Okay. So, let's take one of the... I thought I had some sacks that I put down. I guess not. Identify as a pumpkin. This is a pumpkin. Marvelous. Full belly makes a helpful friend. This beastie is now inclined to cooperate. And last but not least, For 1,000 years, the unconquered sun has been worshipped here in all his aspects, though since the heresies of the intercalate, many of those aspects are considered distinct hours in their own right, and the sun's death and birth are now celebrated. The abbey church used to be more golden, but many of the valuables were lost at the abbey's dissolution, including the original stained glass. These magnificent windows are of recent manufacture, financed by the 8th librarian Green, who was a believer of the Second Dawn variety. We'll go over the items that were inside the church in the next episodes, but I need to wrap up, especially because I think I probably need to think about getting some sleep. But either way, I will make sure that we have the rest of the week recorded when we need it. But as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.